be a part of the show. It's refreshing to have some positivity in the world, especially when everything seems to be so negative on social media. It's ridiculous sometimes. And so it's good to be around people with such positive energy. And I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation.
Yeah, and part of this, too, when we're doing this podcast is shedding light onto things so we can have that human connectiveness and bring us back together. Just think we need more of it. But now we're going to turn to Lady Cat. Lady Cat, how are you? You, the first 2 episodes, you were worried about Kleenex. Are you worried about Kleenex tonight?
No, I'm not. I do have some minor OCD, tendencies. So tonight is going to be an interesting episode for me. But I'm good. I'm just so happy. Speaking of OCD, now that we're in this new house, like I am being so OCD about all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm like, okay, color coordination, throwing away stuff I haven't used in a year, just cleanliness. I'm trying to be very clean, and it's just, is OCD sometimes a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's just, this is going to be a good episode, and I'm really excited.
I think starting fresh helps you with that, with what you're going through. When you're going into a new house, I was an Army brat for many years, right? So I moved a lot.
Oh yeah.
So then my husband, he moved us every year for 7 years straight.
Yeah.
And so every year I was going through a whole new set of OCD tendencies. It was like he couldn't keep up. Yeah. And so I think starting fresh kind of it triggers that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
So I think you're going to see a lot of that within the next few months. And Jedi better get ready.
And I think that's one reason why I cut my hair and I just got rid of it, because it's been 9 years.
You can control that. It's something you can control.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, let's do this.
And I've just been so obsessed with keeping my long hair to my butt, and it's just like not worth it. And I'm just ready to purge and just get it out of here and just start over. And I'm like, okay, am I taking it too far or what? But yeah, I'm good. I'm just happy. I'm in a great mood. We laughed our butts off earlier, so like my
we did.
It was a good pre-show. Good pre-show.
We are ready for it.
Let's do this.
So, one guest that I have today is returning from the first week. So, Brady, how are you doing tonight? Are you super excited? The pre-show, I don't think you were excited at all, by the way. We had to tell you to put the mic down and stop touching it. So
don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
So how are you doing tonight, and what do you think about tonight's episode and what it's going to bring?
I'm good. I'm here. I'm queer. I'm obsessive compulsive.
I'm dead.
No, I think it's going to be really fun. It's hopefully not going to be very much of a heart-wrenching episode like the first 2 were.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be nice. It's not all, the whole thing with obsessive compulsive disorder is to get diagnosed.
I promise I won't stare at you like a creeper. I promise.
But, true. It's not, it's going to be nice to be able to talk about it and, talk about someone else that, suffers from it, but is living through it. Mm-hmm. And also just talk about like, hey, maybe you're not obsessive compulsive. Maybe you have this or that or the other, and it's okay to, maybe we don't say that we have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Maybe we give it a new name.
Like learning to decipher between what is and what isn't.
Do you need to go to the doctor? Because you might not be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we will get into all of that, but I want to introduce Stephanie. So Stephanie, this will probably be one of a couple. I hope that you come back and have a good relationship with you. So hopefully we would.
Me.
Yeah, so tell us just a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
And then we'll get right into it.
I know, of course, Adam through work and Brady through work. They've become really, great friends of mine. And I moved out here actually in 2007 for my career with a very well-known cosmetic company, and then was able to kind of get into freelancing and have done that ever since. I have a little one at home, and he was like, "Mom, I can't believe you're going to be on a podcast. You're so cool." I was like, "What?" So I got some like cool mom points tonight.
Nice.
And Dad's letting him stay up a little bit later. So, but that's my family life, and I'm an advocate for OCD. I'm a member on the IOCDF. I'm one of the panel members for IOCDF. I'm what they call an OCD advocate. So I basically advocate for OCD, what it is and what it isn't. And then I have a platform on social media.
Could you explain to the audience and to our friends here what the IOCDF is?
Yes, that would be important, wouldn't it?
I feel like Brady's auditioning for a job.
Yes. He's already asked me if he can come on. So he is.
Maybe he can be your co-host.
Oh my gosh, he was like pumping me up. He was like, "Are you ready for tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm so excited." He was like, "Do you know where you're going? You got here okay?" I'm like, "I'm good. I'm pulling in." He was awesome. He was so supportive.
You know, I got my best hostess tip from an old magazine article that Joan Crawford did, and you just give everyone a little bit of vodka, don't tell them, and everyone has a wonderful time.
Yes. I can't wait.
Wait, but where's my vodka?
Look,
I was like,
The key part is not to tell you.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So, tell us about. Let's get back on track with the
sure.
what is.
So,
What is
it is. And this, I really feel like this helps when you talk about, a really serious mental health topic like this or disorder. I think bringing humor into it, it's really going to connect people because, and I do bring a lot of humor into it. I think, especially when it comes to my own issues, because I think it's helped me heal a little bit. I know it's not that way for everyone, but it stands for International Obsessive Compulsive Disorder Foundation. And it is the biggest foundation that really advocates for OCD and OCD sufferers.
Awesome. Well, I mean, look, I'm super excited because, both of you, we've had conversations, but I know Stephanie and I have had a conversation. And first of all, I make Stephanie cry in the store.
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh.
talk about
So
my
I'm
personal
probably
life.
going to cry in here because
So,
he makes me cry like just sometimes with your stories. you
Yeah.
know?
So, I mean, for me, it's just, having an outlet for this and a podcast for this and just letting people know that they have a place and that it connects to the right people. I think the first 2 episodes that we've had have connected to the right people. I think people have been able to see that they're not alone and do all this. But there might be people out there that today think that they're OCD but don't know that they can be diagnosed with it or see a physician for this. So that's one of the things today. But before we kind of get into a little bit of your guys' stories here a little bit, I just want to talk about OCD. And it's characterized by compulsions that are either uncontrollable impulse or performed to act and often repeated, and their obsessions. So the inability to stop thinking about the certain topic or image without the anxiety on that. So it's kind of a 2-step diagnosis with that. So within the realm of the obsessions, a person with an obsessive compulsiveness may become fixated on thoughts of violence, aggression, contamination, or even it lists religion. Among the most troubling, however, are the sexual obsessions with the OCD. So when we think OCD, this is why I like to do podcasts about this. When you think OCD, you think about the person that wants the bottle right here and it does not move.
Yep.
Or
they're
the cleaners.
The cleaners, right?
Yes.
Which is a subtype, but that's only one. There's over 12, I think.
Yep. So these are any kind of obsessions or compulsions that create an anxiety that become an obsessive compulsive disorder. So what I'm super excited tonight is we're going to shed light on OCD is not this has the right place and that's where it should live all the time. OCD comes in so many different forms, and we need to be able to recognize this to be able to point people in the right directions or to get them help. When you talk about sexual obsessions, we won't be talking about that probably too much tonight, but you're thinking about maybe rape. You're talking about things that could happen through that because people are looking for that, right?
That disorder, it's really, there's really nothing that's off the table when it comes to intrusive thoughts, sadly. And, but everyone's intrusive thoughts are different.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. So, we're just going to start a little bit. So I'm going to have you both share just a little bit. But before we do, I'm going to share a little bit about myself with the obsessive compulsiveness. So I used to feel anxiety towards a certain thing, which I won't say on air. So with my life, and it was actually detrimental to myself with the obsessive compulsiveness. It had to do with me and a self-image of myself. to the point that if something didn't look right on me or I didn't look, I was trying every way to get it fixed, or I would try to fix it in a certain way. And if it wouldn't go away, then it created the anxiety of what are people looking at me as. I know they see it. And through all of that. And, you know, for me, I won't share too much about myself tonight with this topic, but for me, meditation has really, really taken it down for me. You know, I was never really diagnosed with too much. I just really had to learn how to calm myself down, give myself the positive intention of meditating through it, and to breathe. So maybe I'm not an extreme level of OCD or anything on the lines of that, but you know, for me, meditation helped me through a lot of things, which is one of the things. So, you know, Stephanie, I'm going to start with you. So just talk about a little bit about your story, a little bit with obsessive compulsiveness.
Y'all are about to get a handful.
Nice.
The juicy details. You know, I'm open about it now because I'm an advocate. So my hope is that by sharing these stories, I'm helping other people that are too afraid to talk about it, because it's a really taboo mental health disorder. It is one of the top 10 most debilitating mental health disorders out there. And the reason it's in that top 10 is because there is literally no end to the cycle unless you are doing exposure response prevention, which is, as Brady knows, is the gold standard treatment for OCD. So some people are diagnosed at all different, I think, stages of life. And like you said, Adam, like there's people that are on this, you know, spectrum, right? Where they may have just a small subtype where things might bother them a little bit here or there. And they may have intrusive thoughts around those specific obsessions. It's not really OCD unless they have whatever the obsession is. They have to have a compulsion and a ritual, and it has to come in that kind of circular pattern. It can be mental compulsions or it could be physical compulsions. Most of the time they're physical, but they can all be in their head too. So someone can, maybe if they are walking down the stairs and they, if they have magical OCD, right? That's one of the subtypes. They skip 4 stairs every time they go down. You don't know that because you're just watching them walk down the stairs. But if they miss a stair, that is detrimental. So sometimes you'll even see them come back up the stairs and go back down again. Same thing with counting. So they may have counting rituals where they have to count to 10 in their head every time they, you know, walk into a room, or so all these things are happening inside their mind and no one else knows about it. So that's more of the kind of mental component to it. But it can happen at any stage in life. Like it happens a lot of times when kids are, I was diagnosed later in life, which usually it takes like 7 to 14 years is the average to be diagnosed. But I've had it since I was 8.
So you talked about the mental aspect of things here a little bit. And so I really want to get into the mental aspect. And can you talk to me about like the demoralized, I don't know how to say this, like how you feel demoralized from the, or maybe depressed. It could be a word too that we could use it.
Bipolar and depression, which, you know, I've been diagnosed with depression, but those are comorbid, that they happen a lot of times. Also, which you mentioned earlier, Adam, BDD, so body dysmorphic disorder, which is what you talked about. That is also a very comorbidity with OCD as well. Trichotillomania, pulling out your eyelashes and your hair on your body. So there's, I don't know if you have anything else to add on
Eating
that.
disorders.
Eating disorders is a big one, which I think I originally had talked to you about. That's a huge one.
So Brady, kind of rope us in a little bit with OCD as far as the diagnosis. Maybe you haven't been diagnosed or talk about a little bit about your life with obsessive compulsive.
So I have. It was one of the things I initially got my diagnosis when I finally went to go see someone. If y'all remember, watch me on episode 1. We talked about finally going and seeing a doctor, and I was finally talking about my mental health and all these things that I thought were just normal, because you don't have a point of reference for what's normal because you're not in anyone else's head. And she's like, oh no, this isn't, sweetie. Like, you're really depressed and you have been for a long time and you're suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder. Which is...
Wow, she caught it that fast.
Oh, she was like...
That's amazing.
Well, because we sat down and we talked for like 4 or 5 hours, and I was
Wow.
like, these are the things that bother me the absolute most. I have this. A big one for me was talking about, I don't know why I hate myself because these thoughts, I have to have this to eat, and I have to eat this, and I have to eat this on this day, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I don't want to. I don't want it. But if I don't,
you feel like
the
you
whole world is
have
going
to.
to end.
Yep.
Because it's the only thing I can think about ever. So really, what we got down to it, and she's like, let's come back. We started talking more and more about it. We went obsessive compulsive disorder, like we've talked about. There has to be, the very first part obviously is an obsession.
Yeah.
That's why it's the first letter is obsessive compulsive disorder. So those are those intrusive thoughts that can be about literally anything. There's a lot of common subtypes Adam talked about, whether it's about religion or maybe it's the magic numbers, it's counting, maybe something's a safe number. The common, it's about cleanliness.
What about thoughts just running over and over and over?
That can
in
be
your
really
head?
common.
Yeah.
And then the compulsion is what you have to do to prevent that from making you more anxious, being more debilitating. So let's say that you have obsessive thoughts like, I really need this to be in order. I'm going to be upset if it's not. But your whole world isn't going to end if something's not, or you don't have like a weird ritual where it has to be the same way every single time. And I've got to do this, particularly this, and this is the only thing that calms it down. That's maybe the difference between having an obsessive personality trait and then actual obsessive compulsive disorder. Because an obsession, like, obsessive personality trait, you can maybe even swing it into a positive, like, I like everything to be really well organized. I can find all my paperwork.
Yes.
I keep my house so neat and clean. And you might get upset, like if your dog like runs muddy footprints through the, and you need to re-Swiffer, but you're not going to have to go over the same spot 30 times because that's your safe number, and that otherwise your whole life isn't going to end. You could probably go to sleep if like you came home at 2 a.m. from clubbing and your house is like somehow something's a little dirty. It's fine. You can sleep and you can deal with it in the morning versus you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't do this. Like you're going to get up like 50 times in the middle of the night to mop your floors again.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. And
Okay.
I think that's really what people don't understand is like the amount of time that it, like, I can't tell you how many times I would be late for work and people would be like, Stephanie, why are you late? Why are you late? And it's like, if they only could see what I had to do just to get out the door, I have to touch the stove 4 times. I have to touch the lock 4 times. I have to physically touch the outlets over and over and over for them to feel just right. And then I can leave. So it affects every aspect of your life. And when you have a 9-to-5 job, I think it's great too when you, like for me, I don't have a 9-to-5 job. So it works out great because I'm like, okay, I'm going to time these rituals. My rituals have gotten a lot better over the years because I've had ERP. I know what to do.
ERP.
But
What
Can
is
we talk about what
ERP?
ERP is?
oh yes, let's go into ERP. We're kind of jumping, but I'm
are
like, hey,
jumping.
this
That's
is,
okay.
that's
But we're
this
good.
is, it's dialogue.
I am
We gotta
learning
do this.
so much.
I'm
Like,
glad.
It's great.
I
It's
bonded
great.
with Brady
I
so
love
much
it.
because he knew. Like right when I started talking about it, it was like instantaneous. Like, oh my gosh, you get it.
Yeah, it felt so safe, and it feels safe here because I know
Oh,
y'all, and I
totally.
really like y'all too. And I've already talked about my mental health with y'all before, so. But it feels really safe to talk to someone
Absolutely.
that doesn't know, or that does know, and it's like, oh, you're not gonna be like, oh, that sounds crazy. It's all in your head. Well, like, yeah, it's a mental
know.
disability. It is in our head, but it's still
We
very
know
Well,
it's
real.
no,
illogical.
it's also great for people. I'll be the first to admit it's great for people like me who thought I had OCD, but no,
I mean,
it's not
but-
OCD.
yeah.
It's
A
it's
lot,
like
but-
you
but
said,
if
it's
you don't-
obsessive
Yeah,
personality
OCPD,
disorder.
obsessive
Yes.
compulsive personality disorder.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing too.
It is.
You could
Yeah.
go and see someone for it. You
But
could
now
do
I
talk
know
therapy.
the difference,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
so great.
Or you might do some sort of behavioral therapy, like exposure and response prevention, which is what we were supposed to be talking about.
yeah, go into that. Go into
so
that. Let's go into that.
It's really what the name says.
Yeah.
It's an exposure and it's a response prevention.
Yep.
So when you encounter one of the things that sets you off, one of the things that makes you obsess, you have a lot of anxiety. And it is not your normal fight or flight anxiety. Sometimes you might have like that magical sixth sense where something's not right. Hey, like
Like
it's
that gut feeling,
Whoopi
right?
Goldberg in Ghost, like you in danger, girl. Like something
Yeah.
might be happening. But when
Good analogy. I like that.
when you go up and like head on. It's your obsession. It's not, oh, you might be in danger. It's like, this is global thermonuclear war. It is the end of the world. And so you're exposed to it. And you purposely expose yourself to this, which is clearly, it's like
think about your worst fear, right?
And you have
and then just
it's
you
like
have
being
to
on
do
Fear
it.
Factor.
Yeah.
And you
Pretty
have to go
much.
up and do it. And so then response is what is your normal compulsion? That's your response to it. And instead of like doing your normal ritual, you have to put yourself through not doing it. And you have to try to walk yourself through it. And like,
So hard.
depending on who
So
your
hard.
therapist is, you might be given like, okay, I'm going to try to do like a little meditation.
Yeah.
I might have, maybe I can have a different response that's
Or you can,
not
like,
as
baby step
debilitating at
it,
first.
you know?
Maybe I wait and then I do it. And it wasn't the end of the world that I had to wait.
Yep.
And then the prevention part, which is we're trying to prevent it from being debilitating. One thing for me, I have not always had the same obsessions and the same responses
And,
to
and
them.
typically people don't.
It's,
The obsession's kind of...
things can come and go. Usually they come and they stay and you have to deal with them. My back door was open one night when I went down to get some water at like 1 a.m.
Oh, gosh.
I'm an anxious person already. And my back door was just open. Okay, now realistically, my house's foundation was shifting because I live a little south of Dallas. It's basically all clay. We know that foundation shifts, and we know that like wooden frames for doors have a wooden frame and it's a wooden door, and it just shifted open a little bit because it was really windy and someone probably didn't close the door all the way.
But your mind didn't go there.
But you know what? It wouldn't have done that if it had been locked.
Right.
So I was always the type, like, we grew up, you lock the doors, you turn on the porch light, you just do it. It's part of the bedtime ritual. For months, I would wake up in a cold sweat, heart palpitations. Like I could not sleep because I was constantly running down my stairs to make sure my doors were locked.
So
Even though I was the one who would lock it, I would even videotape myself locking it.
Oh,
and
it
I would
doesn't matter,
watch
right?
the tape. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, no, it could be like some sort of, I could have been alien abducted and this is a false planted video. I don't know. Your head will make up the
Just
craziest
go off the
things.
wall.
And I had to make sure my door was locked. And eventually she was like, sweetie, like, you're going to have to tell yourself that it's okay and that you did lock the door. And you know what? Like at first I thought I was going to die and that my heart was going to explode just waiting 30 seconds before I started going down. And then I stopped running down the stairs. I was like, okay, I'm just going to walk down the stairs. And now like, I'm like, okay, you know what? I can, I'll go have
Maybe,
a check.
maybe
But
not,
maybe it's just like once and it happens and it's not all the time. But that was something that I literally had to go through that. And the hard thing is like, you have to go through that yourself. It's not like a traditional talk therapy where you can talk about it and you're like, yeah, I know this isn't normal. Like, I know it's not normal. That's the difference between like, let's say if someone hoards a lot as obsessive compulsive disorder because there's kind of, it goes back and forth on whether or not is that really obsessive compulsive or is hoarding just a totally different disorder. But like someone that hoards doesn't see a problem with it. I knew that I was, we won't say crazy because that's really demeaning, but I knew I should not be running
there was
down.
an issue.
I knew that there was that issue
it's
and
illogical.
I recognized
You just
that it
can't
was
really,
illogical. And so that's where it really,
You can't get it out of your mind. How do I?
one of the worst things about obsessive compulsive
That's what
disorder is
makes
not only
it-
is it
I mean-
debilitating, we know it's debilitating.
Oh,
Yeah.
and we know it's illogical. It's like same thing where like, obsessively washing your hands. So that one is the one that I think a lot of people think about. My hands were raw. I mean, it was like anything I touched, I would go wash my hands. And I was hiding that because I was 11 at the time. So it was like, I didn't want people to know that I was constantly going to the bathroom, washing my hands. And, I remember my mom saying, come on down for dinner. And it was like, I would wash my hands and then I would touch the railing and then I would go back and wash my hands. And I mean, I remember her saying, why are your hands all red? And it was like, I would just like hide it all the time. And that's a common one, but there's so many that aren't common.
So you all talked about knowing, right? You know that it's illogical and you know all that. So would it be right for me to say, looking from the outside in, like it's like a light switch, you know how to turn it off, but you don't know how to click it off, even though you know the solution to turn it off. Is that a,
like,
is that a
I think
right
that's
analogy?
A good,
Yeah.
So we know what things we have to do to like ERP is there if we have, you know, the right tools and we're given ERP support, because gosh, we can go into a whole nother discussion about access to therapy, right? Because ERP is expensive. I mean, I pay $175 every time I see my ERP therapist, you know? So it's ridiculous. So yeah, there's that whole other piece to it is, are people getting the help that they need, or are they going to see CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and they're being told to suppress the thoughts, right? That's like the opposite of what you actually want to do in those situations. So.
Yeah. So most diagnoses happens before the age of 19. You can be diagnosed as an adult, but from what I read, most diagnoses happen before the age of 19. So talk to me a little bit from maybe a parent perspective, and how a parent would be able to gain understanding if it's obsessive compulsiveness, or like, can you walk me down how somebody could look at it and understand? Because as parents, we would be stressed out, right? We could be stressed out. We could be in our own, anxieties and our own, not really
what's
seeing
going
it.
on. Because a lot of times as parents, we don't sometimes see what's going on deeper with the kids.
It's one of those things where, I even get emotional just talking about it, because how would you know that those things, you think in your mind, okay, they're going through puberty, they're adolescents, they have stress from school. I think in our era, when I grew up, I'm almost 40, that you really didn't go to therapy unless, there was something seriously wrong that was evident. And I hid it a lot. So
I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, my parents would have never recognized anything that was going on with me.
They didn't, and even now,
they didn't know.
When I talk about it now, they just, and I love my parents. They're amazing people, and my mom is so supportive too now that she knows more about it. But they still don't quite understand the magnitude of it, because they just
because
don't
to
deal
them
with
it's
it.
like a light switch, like click it off. Like my husband's the same way. Like, why are you acting that? Just change your behavior.
Totally.
Just change
That's
it.
my mom.
And
That's totally
and
my
I
mom.
tell my husband all the time, it's not like a light switch. I just can't just change the
Can't just turn it off,
my
right?
Yeah, my dad, very smart man, love him to death, but is the type that kind of thinks he knows everything about everything, because he has 3 degrees. He has a degree in chemistry, biology, and nursing. And so I'm like a smaller child, and I am just like, they do not understand why it is not okay for me if things are not a certain way. And he's like, okay, well, come here. Oh my gosh, talk about the start of trauma. Therapy's like a game show where if it's not one thing, it's your mother. He's like,
your daddy.
I know, in this case, it's my dad, but he says, come here, I have a surprise for you. And I'm like, oh, cool, yeah. And he pricks my finger with a blood sugar reading test to see if maybe I'm diabetic. He doesn't understand, why does my mood go from 0 to 60?
Right.
Why am I so
he's trying to self-diagnose.
And he's trying to think diabetes runs in the family, what's going on with this kid? And then suddenly, because it's not what he thought, he's like, yeah, she's kind of a weird kid,
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
and I think my parents were like, there's just some quirks there.
Like, some people are just weird. It's okay. Some
and that's
people just
okay.
have obsessive personality. Some people are just and sometimes it's not obsessive compulsive personality. It's sometimes you just really like things a certain way.
Absolutely.
And that is okay.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Like, if you're I don't know, if you're having a knockdown drag out fight with your kid because they won't let their food touch,
oh man,
that's really common.
That's a red flag.
It is a red flag.
That's a red flag.
Maybe let's start looking for other things.
Yeah.
Start just observing more. Does your kid have any weird idiosyncrasies? Do they have to do a certain number of things a certain number of times? Or did you tell them oh, well, go stir, I don't know,
and it's funny because as a mom, I look for those things now. And because they say it's genetics. So I'm like, okay, so now I kind of dissect. I'll be like, okay, he's doing this. Could it be, because there's this fear, this underlying fear that I don't ever want my offspring to experience what I've experienced, And so there's this point where you're like, I just pray that this doesn't happen for him, because I know what it was like for me. But thankfully, mental health we've been able to kind of smash that stigma.
It's
now,
become a
more than
frontline
ever.
issue.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
definitely become a frontline
And
issue.
I think it's helped a lot
Yeah.
of people be able to use their voice, and this platform is a way for people to use their voice.
So what kind of questions could I ask? So I don't have children yet. I'm
Yet?
not giving up yet on it.
No, don't.
But-
My
I
gosh.
have 3. And they're all adults.
They're all grown.
They're all adults.
And mine's
at
in
this
elementary,
point,
so
it is
he's
what
young.
it is with them.
So if we feel, we'll use the food separation kind of thing,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So if we see that, what kind of questions could I, as a parent, ask my child
Mm-hmm.
to maybe distinguish if it's a OC or an obsessive compulsive thing, or if it's just a
Your child is weird.
abnormality
You know,
of some
and
sort?
sometimes there can be those little quirks
Yeah,
that we were
I
talking
mean-
about. I think if it's disrupting their everyday life, like this is causing them immense stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, the actual official diagnosis is what, over 1 hour or 2 hours of these compulsions, right? Of these rituals, or obsessive
You said 1 or
thoughts.
2
I think
hours
it's
a day?
1 hour a day.
Oh, a
I think
day.
it's 1 hour a day or more
Okay.
is one of the criteria.
Consecutive or just throughout the day?
Well, I think it can be throughout the day
Okay.
because when you think about it, when you really add up the amount of time someone deals with OCD, it typically is hours.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about how many years that's taken out of your life that you've spent doing obsessions and compulsions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the criteria. So you do want to look up and see, okay, is this disrupting their everyday life, or are these small idiosyncrasies that aren't really affecting them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a difficult because
It
you
is.
get embarrassed too, especially as
So
a
you can
child.
hide it
too.
really well.
You
I mean,
wanna
I hide it really well.
But let's say you notice something. I think maybe asking them like, "Hey, I noticed
Why
you
do
do
you do
this.
that?"
Yep.
Why do you do that?" And in a very non-confrontational way.
Oh,
Children
yeah.
are like, children will make things up in their head. Everyone
Yeah.
does. Like, they're like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." Like, "Oh God, what did I do?" Just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I noticed this. I do this. Why do you do it this way?"
Yeah.
And you can kind of glean a lot from it.
Oh,
is the
totally.
whole world going to end if this happens? Now, are children dramatic?
Yeah,
Yes.
right. And I think that's
So-
really, like Adam said, that's hard to know because they can be dramatic.
Because isn't a lot of things, so this where I'm getting with this is a lot of times, isn't it kind of confused with attention deficit hyperactivity
Yes,
disorder?
ADHD and OCD are like probably the most misdiagnosed too, especially in children, because a lot of times they'll automatically be slapped with that ADHD label, and OCD is never even talked
Considered.
about.
Yeah.
I would, and I know healthcare is really expensive, and we won't talk about it because it's a very contentious subject in this country. But there are always resources out there just to Google away. There's so many foundations. There are
yeah.
free clinics. There are teaching and learning hospitals.
Yeah.
I would say, you know what? If you feel like you see this and your child is like, you feel like maybe it's debilitating, maybe it's debilitating to you. It's hard to live with someone with obsessive compulsive disorder.
Oh yeah, that's
Take
a whole
them
other topic.
to a specialist.
Is that why I'm
and
always by myself? Do I need to go get? Am I going to be one of the
but
few that are?
I
You know,
really feel like there should be
Yeah.
there should be a podcast for family members of
Yeah,
others with OCD
advocate
because
for
my
your
poor husband.
yourself and for your child. And be
We'll
like,
have him
hey,
on next week.
I have this concern. I wanted them to see something. I just wanted to see them, and that's good. Maybe your child has ADHD. Maybe they have obsessive compulsive disorder. Maybe
But
they
getting
suffer
the
from
correct
anxiety.
diagnosis is the
important.
most
And be
important.
willing
Yeah.
to see multiple people. Just because one doctor tells you one thing doesn't mean every doctor is going to have the same opinion.
It's
That's why
good
it's
to
called
have
the
a second
practice
opinion.
of medicine,
Absolutely.
because it's not like every day everyone is learning more things. There's still so
Yep.
much research going on between like, how does obsessive compulsive disorder link with binging eating disorder, anorexia
gosh, I know.
nervosa, so many different
Yeah.
disorders. Like, we're still always learning. I learn more about myself, and I'm like, oh God, this makes so much more sense
Oh, I
now.
know.
And I'm
Whenever
like,
you read
I
about
you don't
it.
even know yourself.
Yeah.
So let me ask.
Yeah.
You said that it was like 1 hour a day. Like that's what you look for. Does it get progressively
Oh,
worse as you get older? Do you notice? Have you noticed that it's gotten progressively?
I actually feel like now that I've had ERP, it's gotten better. But
Okay. But if it's not
are-
diagnosed,
there are a lot. It's a good question. There's a lot of statistics that show it spikes during late adolescence. So, and we can attribute that to hormones, right? I mean, think about what's going on during adolescent periods, and even like high school, even pre-college, and also everything that's happening around them. They're dealing with a lot more stress as they get older. So I think that kind of tends to be where people say that like teen years, early, right? Like late teen, early 20s is kind of where they say like people start noticing that it gets worse.
Yes. Your brain doesn't start, your brain is not 100% fully developed until you're 25. Now are things like neuroplasticity, sure, fine, whatever. Like,
right.
You're always learning. We're always learning. We're always growing. But physically, your brain is not mature until you're about 25.
Right.
And, obsessive compulsive disorder is there's so many different things. One of the leading theories right now is that it doesn't metabolize certain sugars correctly. Okay. And, you're firing off, your
brain lock. Have you read that?
Yeah,
book?
there's so many different things going on. So I wouldn't say, I don't feel like it got worse as I feel like I've started now. I just turned 26.
You're recognizing. You're recognizing.
I feel like a little more stable. And even if I'm not, going and doing ERP as much, either with my therapist or trying to help myself on my own, I feel like I've evened out actually a little more as I've matured. And that's not to say, someone who hasn't gotten help at all couldn't.
Oh, it's like the backdoor. They call it the backdoor spike, which is totally real.
You can slowly lose control of your life.
Like
more
you
and more
can be
to
doing
it.
really well, and then all of a sudden you have what they call this backdoor spike, right? So like recovery in with anything really is never linear, right? But you have this backdoor spike where all of a sudden you're doing really well, and then you start feeling really well, and you're like, well, this isn't normal. Why am I feeling so well?
Because
Why
you lived your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the fear of not having those thoughts.
That something is
You're
now
almost
wrong.
addicted to your own.
Wow.
It's pretty intense. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, if you've ever even seen a movie about someone going to AA, I'm not saying it's accurate. I don't want to, diminish anyone's, but it is the way they open is, hi, I'm so-and-so and I am an alcoholic. Because if you weren't an alcoholic, you would be able to have just that one drink, but you know that you can't.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because there is one thing I jotted down that I wanted to bring up, because we talked about OCD. What in people's mind is that bottle has to be right there where it needs to be. And when I was doing research on this, so here's something that somebody got diagnosed with OCD. So just to put it out there, doctor diagnosed them with OCD with this. And I just want you guys to talk about, in this situation, how this obsessiveness can cause destruction. So she had sexual obsessions that interfered with intimate relationships. Particularly, they coexisted with the thoughts of violence, suspicion, or doubt, like suspicion of infidelity or that. So she became obsessive about the doubts of the intimate partner and becoming fixated on thoughts or the mental image that her partner was going to cheat, have infidelity. So every time she would go out looking for something good in somebody on a date, she continued to look for the flaws and shortcomings for the infidelity. Diagnosed with obsessive compulsiveness with this. So this is what we're trying to get to light here, that it is not the bottle on the table.
Oh no. And moral scrupulosity, I had that one as a child, so obsessively praying, and I couldn't do anything wrong, right? So anytime I would do something wrong, I would have to pray about what I just did, right? That's one of, I feel like as a child, so hard because no one sees it. No one sees that you're doing those prayers, right? But you cannot even put your head on the pillow to go to sleep at night unless every prayer is exactly the way it should be, right?
Yep.
That's moral scrupulosity, but then harm OCD is a whole nother category.
So, I'm not trying to get everybody to go out there and start diagnosing everybody with OCD.
No, of course not.
See a professional. Don't self-diagnose. This is not Twitter. It's not trendy. You don't want it.
No, you don't. And I feel like that's the biggest thing, is that when people really realize what it is, they're like, holy cow, I don't want that. And I'm glad I'm not using it as an adjective anymore, right? Like, you can't be so OCD.
Tomorrow I'm like, no, I'm not OCD, y'all. I am not OCD.
Oh, no, it could be, if you're her employee, it could be so much worse.
Oh, right. I'm just, I have a personality.
But
it's not a bad thing. I don't want it to come out like it's a bad thing, though.
No,
if we use that adjective,
I
it's
think
not a bad thing.
I think it's great that y'all are even like having that open dialogue and being open to understanding what it truly is, because so many people are like, oh, it's just a personality quirk, and they're not willing to take the time to listen, you know?
So a couple more questions for you. I think we're good on time. So a couple more questions. So how do I get diagnosed? How would I go see a physician? And how does a physician diagnose me with OCD? Is it lab testing? Is it like brain imaging? Like how do they diagnose for OCD?
I mean, it's typically seeing a therapist
Yeah.
that focuses
So
or
it's
certified.
psychotherapy?
Yes. You could see either a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Personally, I saw a psychiatrist because there are certain medications that they're like, well, let's kind of throw it all at the wall and see what
Yeah,
sticks.
there's
People
kind
have
of
taken
like a
antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicines, because it's kind of treating the symptom, not the cause.
But
But
my
it helps.
doctor during the time that I was doing my little ditty, and we're going to talk about this a little bit too, because
Sure.
it doesn't necessarily have to be lifelong. We'll
No,
talk about
yeah,
that.
I mean,
it could just
no.
be, last for a couple years, could be lifelong. But, my doctor told me when she gave me the antidepressant, she said the first time that you think about suicide, stop taking it. Because you already have the stress, you already have the anxiety, you already have that going on. And antidepressants are known for causing, some adverse effects with that. So
it can, it
can.
depends on the SSRI.
And you can or an MAOI.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, with these
Or there's
SSRIs.
also there are different types of.
and-
there's like there are two major types of antidepressants.
They are,
but,
and there's certain ones that are really have proven record to help with OCD.
And then there's also some people take antipsychotics.
Yes.
There's several different things. What I would do, what I would do now, because what I researched initially is just a gay-friendly psychiatrist, because I got told basically, like, you need to go get help because you are not okay. But I would, if, I felt like
Look,
maybe
I'm
I was
offended by
suffering
that
from,
comment. Right?
I mean, I wasn't. It was still rude.
Yeah, that
But,
was rude. Like, who says that?
I was not a toxic ex.
Oh my gosh!
I watched
yes.
the Petty podcast.
Yeah, watch the Petty
Listen,
podcast.
walk the other
what I would
way.
do if I feel like if I felt like maybe I was suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder or I had a loved one, I would look up a psychiatrist or psychologist
yes.
that that does exposure and response therapy, because that is the number one proven to work in the majority of cases of obsessive compulsive disorder versus someone that just does like talk therapy or old school cognitive behavioral therapy, which
There's plenty
lovely treatments, but it's
yeah.
not always right for obsessive compulsive disorder.
And there's the really good therapists that focus on ACT or CBT, right? They will refer out if they see that there's OCD going on. They will refer out to an ERP specialist. If anyone wants to find an ERP specialist in their area, they can go on to IOCDF, click in their zip code. It will bring in all ERP therapists in their area.
Kat, I don't know if you can scroll this at the bottom, but there's a telephone number that people can call too. It's 877-470-0501. So if anybody feels like they have the symptoms or they feel like they have OCD and they're maybe trying to hide it from family, which is not a great thing, they can actually call.
Very, it's very lonely. So
What
there
are
a lot of
some
people
red
that hide.
flags that if I were just somebody that
Sure.
thought maybe I could, what are some red flags that I should say, okay, yeah, I should go get help. I should go seek some advice or some assistance. What are some red flags there?
Feeling constantly like you have to do things that don't bring you joy. And that sounds so simple. But like, if, I don't know, there's people that like maybe with compulsive shopping, there's a lot of
That's
people that
another
do
big one.
that and they get these dopamine hits from it and they really
like
enjoy it
stealing.
and they don't see a problem with it. But then maybe like, I have someone near and dear to me that also has obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's not that they don't get a hit from buying things, but like she almost is like a doomsday prepper. She like gets this hair in her head and she passes by this and she's like, oh my God, I have to buy like 20 of this because I have to have it because what if they don't have it? And oh my gosh, my grandmother lived through the Great Depression and and it doesn't bring her joy. And she knows that is a big issue with her. And you feel like, oh, you look back, like, I don't have 24 hours in the day. I only have, like,
that's the biggest
22,
red flag.
21, 20.
Yeah.
Like, I'm losing my time and I want to reclaim it.
How much of
then
this
maybe
time
see some
is it taking me? Like,
or see someone.
Yeah. If
So I
these
can
things are
only
taking me-
imagine. I can only imagine that this COVID pandemic just blew
there is a
this
huge,
out of the water.
in the OCD community. There's actually like 2 or 3 different platforms where they have just had speakers on just that topic because it's been like really tough for a lot. But I think, and they actually, the interesting spin on it was people that already have OCD were always in this fight or flight pattern, right? So when COVID hit, they were actually surprised how much the people in the community reacted kind of a lot more level-headed than the average individual because we're always there. Like
Yes.
we're always
You're always
Yes.
on 10.
we're always at
You're
a
always
10.
on 10. And then when we all got up to 10, it was like, oh, okay, now you guys know where we've
people
been
are
at.
like, man, what is this panic? And we're like, well, this is our whole entire life.
This is
right
my
here.
life. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
That's
it's-
great.
But you know, I mean, I think there comes a point in time where you do have to kind of sometimes bring humor into it. But it's a very deep and dark subject. But I think with any mental health discussion, it has to be had.
You know, I think another one is, because of course, you know, this is not only obsessive compulsive disorder, but routine.
Oh,
and
man.
not routine to like, my routine every morning is I stop by Starbucks before I get to Ulta. But like it is debilitating if it's not your routine. And that's not to say that it's only obsessive compulsive disorder. Something that's really comorbid a lot of the time is autism spectrum disorder, and that, you know, routine is a big thing there too.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, like Stephanie mentioned earlier in the podcast, like, I always go down my stairs this exact way, and if I don't, I have to do it over again, or I have to do something this many amount of
So
times.
how many? Yeah.
You know, like, and
It
that
makes
is
you- it
your
makes you late,
routine.
right?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, maybe that's something to watch out for too. Like, is this you? Like, maybe you should seek some help because, you know, maybe you don't think it's
You start
debilitating,
you
your
start to
routine, but it
recognize
is.
right. You start to recognize like these patterns that make you really sad, right? Like these things don't, like you said, these things don't bring me joy. They make me really sad and really depressed, and I don't feel joy. And I think when that happens over and over and over again in your day, and then you realize the time aspect, how much time it's taking away from your life. And also people around you, if they know you well enough, like my husband knows me very well, he could tell within about a year of knowing me that those were things I struggled with, because they see you. They see some of the things you do.
Did he ever try and stop you from your rituals?
You know,
I
it's
don't know what
funny.
to call it. Is it rituals?
Yeah, it's funny
Like,
when you.
did
That's
he
why I
try
think
and
y'all
stop
need to have
you?
someone like interview a family member, because they actually are told from the therapist, and my therapist is great. He'll be like, get Derek on the phone, and you know, if you're okay with it, you're okay with it. But you know, he's really open about it, and so my therapist will talk to my husband and say, okay, like these are some of the things that you cannot give in, right? So there have been times where I've gotten frustrated, like, you know, I am in bed and I've checked the door 6 times and I've checked the stove, you know, 20 times, and I'm like, can you just check the stove one more time for me? And what do you think what do I want his response to be, right?
Sure, no problem.
Now, when we were dating, that was his response, right? Because he was like, okay, this is going to help. Let me just, yes, it's off, babe, even though we didn't even use the stove today, right? But now he knows he can't. So he'll be like,
you're not just
he'll
humoring.
be like, maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, he's not humoring you.
But
He's
does that
literally
trigger you?
enabling
Oh, it triggers me all the time.
Oh, yeah,
But I learned how to adapt. Same thing with like making sure my son's okay when he's in bed. You know, he was a NICU child, and so I have a lot of trauma around him being in his room. And I've always allowed him to have his space, and he sleeps in his room. He has since he was a baby. But how many times do I check on him at night to make sure he's okay? Like, so those kind of things. And sometimes my husband will, you know, he'll see me get up and he'll be like, no, Steph. I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm going to go back to bed.
So, well, we are about 10 minutes away, so we're going to kind of wrap it up a
Yeah.
little bit. But, I mean, an hour goes by very fast. You all are welcome to talk about any aspect of this, because I think we just touched the surface of things. And I'd be more than happy if you guys want to bring a family member on. I'll talk to them.
I'd love to interview
I
a
joke
family
about that,
member.
but my husband's so quiet. He
That's
wouldn't know what to
we'll
say.
get him to talk. I mean, Brady's really shy, and we get him to talk.
Yeah, can't
you
get Brady to speak at all.
You know.
Yeah, you got two really shy ones. Here. I mean,
yeah.
You know what? That's something we didn't talk about. Y'all, everyone at home, don't laugh. I'll fight you. I would say, and so it's Stephanie, because I know because we've talked about this. We kind of are shy people, and we only shine in small groups or in we know someone already likes us, or I want to say, I mean, I know for me, and I'll speak for her because she won't get mad at me. One of the reasons we're in the industry that we are, we're in the beauty industry, and we wear many hats, but one of our things is we work for brands, and we work as like a representative inside a store, and you know, we can go up to someone and be like, hey honey, how are you? I'm an esthetician, do you need any help with your skincare? Because we know that they're there to they want our help sometimes, and if they don't, well, whatever. But they're there because they're interested in skincare or something. Yeah. But oh my God, a crowd, a group of people, something like
Forget it.
Can't do it. Love music. I'm a nationally award-winning musician.
Concert.
Oh my God, I would
even
just
coming in this building.
Oh, I would just about die.
I had an exposure. My 2 exposures for today were parking on the 6th floor. I almost did not make it. I was like, I'm going to do it, Steph. You're going to do it. Getting in the elevator.
Make the Miami condo.
There goes another one.
And then we did it was a one-way parking garage.
It was like, literally, I was like, this is it. This is where I'm going to go.
And you know, that's the thing. It can be pretty common. You know, everyone with obsessive compulsive disorder isn't the same, but it can be pretty common. That's why me and Stephanie bonded so fast when we met each other. It's so nice to have someone that doesn't enable you.
Yeah.
But 100% understands not only that you are going through something and that it's difficult for you, but they understand how it makes you feel because it makes them feel the same way, and it's of the same magnitude. I texted Stephanie when I got here, before she got here, and I was like, hey, are you here? Did you find everything okay?
She knows
you know, the reason, and I told her, the reason I got lost and why it was so like, oh my God, I just didn't go up the stairs, but right next to me. I thought, oh, it's got to be something else. And it was just something as little as that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get lost. I'm going to get mugged. Oh my gosh. I'm in the middle of Dallas. Someone's going to get me.
The worst goes through your mind.
The worst case
And I was like,
scenario.
and it was a little dirty. And the inside of the stairwell, the building itself, lovely. The inside of the stairwell, and I'm like, oh God, am I ever going to be clean? So like a big crowd, there's so many things that can just set you off.
Absolutely.
And I'd say like, yeah, I'm a shy person just because I don't like crowds and I don't like strangers that aren't in an area that is
very,
a controlled
very
area.
accurate.
So yeah, little old me, I'm a little shy flower.
We're like those, what do you call them? The ambiverts, right? Like we like to talk in small groups, but we're also pretty introverted.
I think
like,
I'm an
we need time
introvert
to,
masquerading as an extrovert.
Yeah.
That's
Is that a coping mechanism?
You know what?
No.
I don't know, because you know what? If I do need my own time to
You know
recharge,
what?
because
Now
it's
that you
difficult dealing with the world. But like, if I'm
Maybe
inside,
that is a coping
like,
mechanism
you know,
because I love time to myself.
like you said during the Rona and lockdown, we handled it a lot, or like our people, we handled it
feel like-
better than a lot of people did, because like we didn't have to be around a lot of things that did trigger us.
Yeah, and we were already like in that flight or
Yeah, like I'm not, like I said, it's already like
we're already there, right? Like we're already there.
oh my goodness. So
Don't try to make your poor friends that don't want to go out with. They don't want to go to the concert with you. They
Right.
love you, but maybe they have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Or social anxiety.
Think of the
that's a whole lot.
children.
If you want me
Don't
on
make
for
us
social
go
anxiety,
to
we can talk about
Disneyland. We
that.
don't want to go.
Oh man.
I know my dad still to this day gets mad at me because I told him as a child I don't like Disneyland.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I love going to Disney World, but it's got to be like I know what I want to go on. A routine.
I know. Yes,
Routine.
like
Yeah.
I'm going to Vegas in February because it's not going to be busy.
Yep. Oh yeah, you got to go off peak all the way.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna go around a little bit. We're gonna wrap it up a little bit. Talk about what we may have learned today. Maybe in your guys' case, how we can go to a website, telephone number, whatever it is that you need to do. First and foremost, I say this to every guest that comes on this show. It is not easy to come on here on a live show and talk about yourself, especially when it's something that inside you may feel slightly embarrassed or you may feel uncomfortable about,
There's
or
some
you may feel
insecurities
like
there
there's
about it.
something that's there.
Absolutely.
So first and foremost, kudos to you because you guys are the bravest people to come in here and share for this last hour. So I appreciate that.
Thanks
first
for
and
having us.
foremost.
Thank you.
You all both know I already love you to death anyway. I make you cry by telling
Oh,
you.
I mean, all the time.
Look, I can make her cry right now.
Probably.
Stephanie,
I know.
Watch, here
Oh.
we go, Stephanie. I just don't want people to feel like I feel.
Oh no!
Yeah.
God, don't start with
That's
that.
what I say
Have y'all
all the
ever
time.
seen?
Oh, man.
Have y'all ever seen Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the old claymation movie?
Oh
Yes.
I feel like the doll from the Island of Misfit Toys, where I haven't any tears left to cry. I've already been through it.
I'm dead with him. I'm
So,
dead.
Jewel,
I'm never gonna watch that movie the same again.
you just ruined it for her. Thanks.
Oh my gosh, that's one of Brody's favorites.
So, Jules, what have you learned tonight? I know that you said you took a lot of notes, but what did you learn?
I took a lot of information from tonight, and I feel like I've always used like the term OCD as like you said, an adjective
I
for
think a
my
lot of people
behavior.
do.
For my behavior, right? But I feel like it's more like a like you said, obsessive personality. What'd you call it? Obsessive.
It's obsessive compulsive
OCD.
Personality.
disorder.
And so I think I'm more the personality than I am the disorder, because I don't have to do all the little rituals and stuff. But I feel like I have some obsessiveness about my life. Like it has to be a certain way. It has to be. If not, it's going over and over and over in my mind. You know, I could have done it this way. I could have done it this way. I should have done it this way. And I lose sleep over it.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And so I thank you for opening my eyes to the difference and opening our eyes as a community that, it just needs support. This needs support. It really does. It's not something that you choose. It's something that you just have. It's something that you are, and you just have to support it. I think with the way that the times are going back in my day, I'm 43 years old. I'm the proudest 43-year-old woman in America right now, because I'm like, when I turned 43, I was like, hell yeah.
Yes, right?
I am embracing.
That's a celebration.
I am embracing everything about it. But I recognize that my parents would have never even thought about even recognizing something
Mine
like
didn't
this.
either. It just wasn't.
And even me growing up with my children, I'm like, you're
How
a teenager.
would you recognize it,
You're a
you know?
teenager.
Exactly.
You're depressed. You're not depressed. You're just being a teenager.
Exactly.
So now it's like we're recognizing so many more things about each other, and it's just so
totally.
important to be so positive and so supportive of, your friend, your family member, your neighbor, because I mean it is the world that we're living in now. We have to be more cognizant to each other's mental state and each other's emotions. We really do.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So, Lady Cat, I know you always have a lot to say at the end of the shows.
Oh,
So-
man. This one is a doozy for me. I'm going to start off here by saying you guys taught me today that what I thought was my OCD compulsion disorder was not my OCD compulsion disorder. It was actually something totally different, in which I really do have. And it kind of it gives me the little frittles right now talking about it and admitting it. But just this whole hour I've been back here anxious, oh God, oh my God, I really do have it, because I have this compulsion of touching stuff. And I hate it. And I've always had it since I was a little girl. And my mom would have to hold
got
my
goosebumps.
hand. Yeah, she would physically have to hold my hands down on my lap. And I never understood why she would do it. But you guys taught me a little bit about something about myself today. So I appreciate it. And I thank you for showing me the difference in that. And whew.
Thank you for your transparency, because it's really difficult to talk about. It's difficult to acknowledge, and I had those from a young child. The tics. I would always flinch, and I still have them now. I do it with you guys probably noticed that I'll do it with my eyes, but those are really hard to control too, because there's actual physical compulsions that people see, and like you said, Kat, family members don't quite understand why, and so they'll try and suppress the behavior, and it just makes it worse.
And what bothers me is I was actually diagnosed with ADHD as a child. And they put me on Ritalin for it.
Oh
and
man, stimulant. Okay.
It made me worse. It made me a lot worse. And
that ramps everything up.
oh my gosh,
you know?
it literally turned me into like a crackhead. Like I would be in my room like
Oh, man.
scribbling on some art,
Yeah.
and I'd go, "Mom, look at this," and she'd
Yeah.
be like, yeah," and I'd be like, "Okay, it doesn't look good," and then I'd go back in there and scribble some more, and it just. It's really bothering that like they completely misdiagnosed what I think is OCD, and I've lived with it over the past 26 years and I've learned to like get over it, but it's just slightly disturbing in the fact that like I'm now 27 years old and I'm like, what?
Oh, it's mind blowing. There's a lady. She's in my support group, and she is 45 and just was diagnosed. 45 years old.
And our parents, generally speaking, they did the best they could with
absolutely.
the tools
With the knowledge that they had.
And our
Yes.
knowledge, we talked about this earlier, our knowledge of everything is always expanding.
Absolutely.
I would just personally say, especially to you, Kat, because I know you, I adore you. And to anyone maybe out there that listened to this or they're going to share it with someone, anything that you feel like mentally you need a little help with, it might be a true mental illness.
Absolutely.
You should really seek help. It's just a Google search away, whether it's obsessive compulsive disorder or something else. There are resources out there to help you. No one says, oh, it's just a little cancer. It's fine. I just need to smile more. There are real mental illnesses that are out there that are making your life so much harder than it needs to be, because you deserve to be happy. No matter who you are, you deserve happiness and to be able to live that full,
Absolutely.
able life.
That's a big, and Kat going like kind of acknowledging, when those things settle in, like, wow, like I remember when I first had that recognition, like, wow, this is OCD. It's very emotional. And also, like you said, it's like we treat physical illnesses so different than we do mental health disorders.
And that may be
right?
because we see it.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
physical, right?
Yeah,
Mental
absolutely.
illness, you don't see it.
You can see
I mean,
a
you see
tumor, a
symptoms.
rash, like,
Sure.
I don't know, radiation burns.
Right.
You don't see what's in someone's head.
Right.
Yeah.
So true.
So Brady, closing out for you, I know you just kind of said, you kind of gave your 2 cents right there at the end, saying, if you feel a certain way, mental illness, it's a Google search away. But, what do you want to share? I know you're going to be on here more.
Many more.
Fan favorite.
So,
You might just take my spot over here.
My mom and my granny voted, and I was the favorite guest.
I mean, you're a fan favorite in life. I'm sorry, but
Miss Congeniality. Just call me Sandra Bullock.
And
He's
Adam's
auditioning for my
Adam's
seat
right up
right
there
now.
too, because I'll tell you, like, I connected with the two of them pretty quickly.
Oh my goodness. So what is it that you want people to take away from things tonight?
I just want people to know that the things that you feel like control you, they don't have to. And no matter what you're going through, there is something out there that will help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, Stephanie, I know you're a big advocate. And like I said, we just touched the tip of the iceberg tonight,
Tip of the
right?
iceberg tonight,
With
man.
this.
I could go on forever. Adam was like, you think we could cover 15 minutes? I was thinking to myself, oh, I could cover like 4 hours if you wanted.
Don't worry. Every guest that's come on so far was like, oh, yeah, I could speak on an episode of
Yep.
all 10 of those
Yep.
topics.
But
Yep.
before you get here, you're like, there's no way I can do this for an hour.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think the anticipatory anxiety, it's a whole nother thing with OCD too, right? we could go on to that tangent, but yeah, like the fear of getting here and knowing where to go. And it was like once we were rolling, I was good, but it was the fear of getting myself in the door, getting up the stairs, making it in. So
Yeah. So let's talk about your group. Where are they located?
Oh,
How can
my
they
for
access
advocacy.
it? Yes,
So,
how can-
IOCDF, I'm an advocate for them. That's an international organization, so you can find them on iocdf.com or .org. I'm sorry, and they are also on Instagram. You can find them there. My platform is small. I just have about almost 1,000 members. It's not really as small as I thought it was. We're growing. We're getting there.
Hey, 1,000.
You know what? We're getting there, right?
Look,
Almost. I'm not at
look.
1,000 yet.
Look, you're doing better than the petty podcast. And BeTrue BeYou.
I'll
we
tell
should
you.
have our own podcast.
Man, that would be fun. That would be a little dangerous, though, Brady. But it's called Navigate_OCD, and I share everything from lifestyle to the day in the life of recovery, what it looks like, what OCD is, and I share about it on there as well.
I'm going to extend this offer to you. I don't know
Sure.
if it's possible or not, but we can actually live stream from here to where you're located. I would
how
love
cool. That
to
would
be able to have part of your group
Uh-huh.
be on a live stream with us here in the
Oh,
studio
man, that would be great.
to talk about different things. And that
I
could
would
be a
love it.
2-hour episode
Yeah.
if we need it to be.
I would love
It could be
that.
a forum for them. I just think that this topic, the one thing I'm taking away from tonight is, man, when people say that what is it, AHHD, how they
ADHD.
Uh-huh.
is overdiagnosed. Man, you just shed light on
Oh, yeah.
today that maybe it is overdiagnosed,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's a lot of obsessive compulsiveness.
And like Brady touched on it too. Like you also have that umbrella of ASD and people that are on the spectrum, and that affects my family personally. They also can have with ASD or autism spectrum disorder. OCD is actually a huge component of people that are on the spectrum. So does that mean you're on the spectrum if you have OCD? No, but a lot of people that are on the spectrum also deal with obsessive compulsive disorder. Not always, but that happens. It's comorbidity a lot.
And I definitely think the second thing I took care of was something that Brady said, which was, look, I'm doing it, but it doesn't make me happy.
No.
Like, I don't really want to do
It's
it. It brings
actually-
negativity
Oh
to
man,
me.
it's actually detrimental. I mean, it can really upset your whole day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for sure. So, well, I appreciate you guys coming on.
thank you for having us.
And we'll do this again soon, hopefully. You guys
can
can be
handle
part
the
of
two of us in one room. That's pretty good.
I didn't really have a choice. I'm just kidding. Well, I've handled you guys in like a 12,000 square
Exactly.
foot
So
building
you know
where I
what?
can run
You
away
know.
to the back.
Yeah, there we go.
So, but no, love you both to death. I think you're great people,
we love you
and
guys too.
indicative of you are truly genuine people that tried to make a difference in this world, and you fight through the things that you need to fight through, and I can appreciate that because that's part of living your authentic truth, which is what we're all about. So, you all tune in. Next Wednesday, so the episode from last week that we're going to have the following week. It's going to talk around art.
Oh, I love that.
And how art changed a person's life with his depression, his anxiety, and he brought everything into art, and you're gonna find out that he had a major brain surgery, that he is reconnected with art to help him get through things.
I know who this is, and I'm so excited.
So,
Oh man, I can't wait to tune in.
so he's a really, really close person in my life. So. And he's, a true epitome of what I think the show is about. With he still has dreams and hopes, and he's not going to let them down. You guys have dreams and hopes, and you're not going to let something bring you down. Last week with Sharon, and then the first week that we had an episode with Brady. We all
had
go
so
through
many
things in life,
awesome
but it's not going to
episodes.
slow us down for the things in life that we want to accomplish. Which is going to be part of the forums of there's going to be a mini podcast series on this called 10 Ways to Live Your Authentic Self, and there'll be 10 one-hour episodes around how you can live genuinely. And then we're also going to do another mini podcast around C+ decisions and how to turn them into A+ decisions so you can have the A+ life that you want. So we're going to talk through that as well. But as we go, love each other, be genuine with each other, stop the hate. It's time to let it all go. And it's time for us to shine through our authentic truth and our authentic selves. So until next week, this is the BeTrue, BeYou podcast.